Recording in progress.
Okay.
No, I think I separated it.
Let's not go. We'll give him a few more seconds.
Robin? Is
Allegiance. Give him a few more minutes. Please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ooh, we got everybody tonight. All right. Good evening. I'd like to call the Milton Planning Commission of September 28th to order. This is a regular meeting of the Milton City Planning Commission, and I'm Kurt Nolte. This is a 7-member commission appointed by the City of Milton Mayor and City Council, created for the purpose of holding public hearings and making recommendations on rezoning use permits, concurrent variances, applications, comprehensive land use plan, and map plan, and other related plans and amendments to the zoning ordinance. Looks like we have all the commissioners here tonight. So with that, the second item on our agenda is consideration of the action minutes.
Move to approve as submitted.
second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. The next item is consideration of preliminary plots, which I don't believe we have any.
We do not.
Okay. I like the cadence of this. We're getting through this.
Do you need a break?
Yeah, maybe. Hey, no, we got some momentum. Let's keep it up. All right, number 4 is consideration of rezoning and use permit applications.
We do not.
Ooh, okay, another one. How about 5, consideration of text amendments to the City of Milton zoning ordinance. Something tells me we have something here.
Yes, we do.
Excellent.
RZ 2206.
Yes.
And Michael will be presenting it and
Excellent. Welcome, Michael.
available for any questions. Yeah, they did it really fast.
Good evening, Planning Commission. I'm here to present a text amendment for a land use project outlined in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan Short-Term Work Program. Perform due diligence to update AG1 zoning district to increase lot width requirement from 100 to 150 feet. During the Comp Plan Advisory Committee meetings, this project was outlined as a year 1 priority. Explore increasing lot width requirement in AG1 zoning district from 100 to 150 feet. Section 64.1. The definition of minimum lot width means the least dimension required along the building line specified for each district, parallel to lot frontage and measure between side lot lines. Section 64.416F. Staff is proposing minimum lot width shall be 150 feet. Staff believes increasing the lot width requirement from 100 to 150 feet will reduce the appearance of density, even though the lots will not increase in size, create more separation between homes, lowering the number of narrow lots, and overall create a more rural theme in the city of Milton. Staff is proposing cul-de-sac minimum lot width shall stay at 100 feet, and I'll expand more on this on the next slide. First, take your attention to the cul-de-sac lot on the left. Lot frontage is defined at the street, which requires 35 feet, and the building line keeps moving back till you get to 100 feet of lot width between 2 property lines. As you can see from the cul-de-sac lots, the house placement is right at the 100 feet lot width building line, which is past the 60-foot front setback requirement. After the recommendation at the June Planning Commission meeting, which staff fully agrees with, we didn't want to require 150 feet of lot width for cul-de-sac lots. 150 feet would push the houses too far back, impacting the tree canopy, and really overall would not be the look or feel that we're looking for. Now, please take your attention to the rectangle lots. These lots already have 100 feet of lot width at the street. Therefore, the building line starts at 60-foot front setback requirement. The rectangle lot is a good example to see the buildable area width. The lot width is 100 feet, subtracting 2 side setbacks at 25 feet apiece, and that leaves you with a buildable area width of 50 feet. The lot width requirement of rectangle lots is proposed to increase from 100 to 150 feet. This is an example of a recently platted subdivision in the city where majority of the lots are at 100 feet in lot width. As you can see from the lot layout on the right, the house is a tight fit and doesn't allow a wider buildable area. The narrow lot requires the garage to be detached and located behind the house. The driveway also has to be right against the property line for access, creating less privacy for the homeowner and for the neighbor. When you have more driveway for a detached garage in the back, that also takes up a large amount of impervious surface. Lots on public streets can have a maximum of 20% impervious. Lots on private streets can have a maximum of 25% impervious. Not only does using more impervious surface for long driveways shrink the overall building footprint of the home, it also precludes the options for additions such as decks, porches, or pools in the future. Here is another example from a platted subdivision in the city, and it shows narrow and wide lots across the street from each other. Keep in mind, these lots are all 1 acre in size. But you can see the lots on the south side with 150 feet of lot width have a wider, more practical buildable area than lots on the north side with 100 feet of lot width. Here's an aerial of the existing street, and you can see how much more separation the homes on the south side of the street have versus the north side. The north side of the street appears much denser, but again, remember, these are all 1 acre in size. Staff thought this minor plat would be a great example. All 3 lots have 100 feet of lot width, and they're around 58,000 square feet in size. Even though the lots are larger than the 1 acre minimum by 15,000 square feet, the practical buildable area is still very tight and narrow. The extra size is not utilized and really only makes the buildable area longer. Staff wanted to give some elevation examples. Here's an elevation of a house with 50 feet of width, which is the maximum buildable area width for a lot with 100 feet of lot width. The house has a tighter fit, smaller buildable area, and there isn't enough room for a side entry garage. Here's an elevation of a house with 100 feet of width, which is a maximum buildable area width for a lot with 150 feet of lot width. As you can see from the elevation, the house has a wider footprint, allows for a side entry garage, front porch, that true farmhouse style that really flourishes on a wider, less restrictive lot. Staff welcomes Planning Commission's input if there should be universal restrictions in AG1 zoning, or we should separate them out versus minor subdivisions and major subdivisions. A minor subdivision is a subdivision of no more than 3 lots, or if any number of single-family residential lots provided are each a minimum of 3 acres or more in size. And a major subdivision is a subdivision that does not qualify as a minor subdivision, 4 or more lots, curb and gutter, road dedication, 1 lot dedicated stormwater management, and the lots are less than 3 acres in size. The Planning Commission recommended cul-de-sac lots stay at 100 feet lot width to preserve the tree canopy in the rear of cul-de-sac lots at the June 22nd, 2022 meeting. And Mayor and Council had positive feedback for the proposed changes at their July 11th, 2022 meeting. For our last example, we thought it'd be a good idea to show the dimensions of both lots side by side. To meet the 1 acre requirement, the 100-foot lot requires 435.6 feet in length, while the 150-foot lot requires 290.5 feet in length. You can see how much longer the 100-foot lot is with an extra 145 feet in length. Now, here are those same lots, but we added building footprint examples. This allows you to really get a sense of the lot width buildable area. You can really see how less restrictive the 150-foot lot appears with that extra 50 feet. It really allows that side entry garage, a wider house footprint. And you can see that the house is not built setback to setback. Here is a summary of the project plan to date. Initiation and data gathering was completed in April. Project planning was completed in June. Execution was completed in July, and we are currently going through the adoption cycle. Overall, here's a summary of what we presented before you today. Section 64416F, minimum lot width shall be 150 feet. Cul-de-sac minimum lot width shall be 100 feet. During the comp plan advisory meetings, this project was outlined as year 1 priority, and we believe we're on way of meeting that goal.
Nice job, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, any comments, questions?
Michael, 2 questions. First of all, in reading the text changes, it was not clear to me in the text if this was applicable to all lots or only lots that would be buildable, i.e., do detention ponds have to have the same thing? Do green spaces or civic spaces need the same requirement? So it wasn't clear from the text, although it was from the description, that this was supposed to be buildable lots.
So this one only applies to AG1, so it doesn't really apply to any of the civic spaces or anything that we're used to in form-based code. There's other parts of the ordinance that for detention pond lots, they don't have to, there's another section that says they don't have to conform to the district standards, so it would not apply to detention ponds. So it's just your vanilla AG1 lots,
But for example, if a subdivision wanted to put in a small dog park or a small green space, would the language support the fact that that may not have to be 150 feet?
It
I know
would.
some of them do around, like if they've got a streamer, they might put something around some green space around a stream or some HOA property around a stream or a entrance or whatever. So it is, I just want to make sure the language is clear. This is just buildable lots.
It does apply to all lots, and I guess the exceptions are in other sections of the code specific to detention pond lots and like that. So yes.
And then just a more general question, has this type of change been implemented in any other Georgia municipalities? Were there concerns, pushbacks, or are we kind of forging the way here?
I don't think we've done any research of, nearby or jurisdictions or within the area, but this was precipitated by our own policies and what we wanted to foresee our subdivisions to be like.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, especially with the renderings, I think it really does show that this gives a more desirable lot.
Right.
I just
And
wanted to make
yeah.
sure we wouldn't run into some kind of pushback or resistance that maybe some others had if if this was tried before.
Yeah, I think also we have a lot of variances that come in where they're on narrow lots and they want to expand their garage or add, a pool house. And I think this just, obviously there's a lot of lots that have already been developed, but we want to try to alleviate those type of variances for new lots because we try to tell people, hey, an acre sounds like a lot of land, but once you start putting your house and your pool and your cabana and your outdoor kitchen and, a she shed or whatever, it just starts, getting very crowded. And so that's why having that width also gives you some advantage to lessening the number of requests for variances, so.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Again, good job. I just had two quick ones. One's more of a comment than anything else. And I think Laura brought this up a couple meetings ago as far as the driveways being right on the lot line. Hopefully with 150 feet, they won't be right on the lot line. They won't, I'm sure they'll still be in the setback, but I think that'll also lessen the one, drive right on top of somebody else's.
Correct.
So I think that's a good. Then the other question I have is the process. Are there current subdivisions that are grandfathered in with preliminary plots? How much, what are the next steps on that?
So right now, we don't have any preliminary plats in.
Okay.
So we're hoping, we don't have a moratorium on them, so we're just hoping that by the time this gets to council, it'll be all resolved and we won't have anybody coming through, so.
And in a perfect world, when would that go to council?
November 7th.
Okay. Good. Any other comments or discussion?
Move to recommend approval of RZ 22-06.
Second.
Seconded by, moved by Judy, seconded by Ron. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous again.
Great job.
Thank you.
All right, the next item, consideration of changes to the City of Milton Comprehensive Plan and other plans. That always scares me, other plans. Do we have to order a breakfast? This could be one of those other plans.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, my presentation is more on the update of the comp plan, short-term work program projects. Of course, the following me will be presentations of different projects. I'd like to introduce first Ms. Emily Groth from Public Works. She is our environmental program manager, and she'll share with the group her research on solid waste and recycling strategies. Ms. Shuba will have a back-to-back presentations on urban growth boundary and larger lot zoning. She'll share some new information and insights on UGB and then introduce the larger lot zoning project. And lastly, of course, Ms. McDonald will present the UDC draft version 4 for discussion.
Great.
Commissioners, to date, we have 28 projects in progress. After reviewing and comparing the comp plan and then the strategic plan tracking document, there are 14 more projects that I have added to the execution report list that you have. I want to make sure that I've captured those and included them in the report. So schedule-wise, all projects are on track. We have adequate resources to ensure the projects remain on schedule. I think overall, we're really in good standing. I also wanted to report that there are 2 projects that have already been completed. The first one is the creation of a Citizen Trails Committee. The purpose of this committee is to advise on the implementation of the Milton Trail Prioritization Plan. The first meeting was held on August 18, and then I think the subsequent meetings are tentatively planned to be held on the 3rd of Thursday of the month. And then the second project, which is continue to support the Equestrian Committee as an important source of feedback on various city initiatives as needed. We have a staff who will be the Equestrian Committee liaison, and this person will support the equestrian community's needs and goals as new initiatives are brought forward. So if everyone agrees, we can move this 2 projects to our completed list. Lastly, I wanted to share some recent developments in 2 projects. The first one would be the proactively focus on Deerfield character area using RKG study as a roadmap. We recently met with the North Fulton CID to discuss an update on Highway 9 and Windward Parkway. We discussed about the propose of an area strategic master plan. This project will be a joint effort between us, the City of Milton, the City of Alpharetta, and the North Fulton CID to update the 2012 LCI study and explore land use and transportation goals. Following the meeting, we receive a project plan and timeline outlining the expected outcomes for the projects as well as the opportunities for input. So this project is progressing quickly with a formal kickoff meeting expected within the next month.
And who's gonna be our representative on that? Who's gonna be representing Milton on that? Yourself?
That would be, I think the Public Works, Sarah Leaders. She'll be our liaison for that.
Okay.
Yep.
So what are the objectives of that study?
So that I don't have that with me. We have someone that will present it to you. I'm bringing her next month to kind of more inform you the detail of the project, the scope, and the goals, and the outcomes as well. Because I think it's a transportation-based study,
Okay.
but I think economic development would like to use that study to kind of improve and maybe improve our economic development strategies in that area. So yes, the kickoff meeting will be the date to be determined. And lastly, we have the branding study for Milton. We've evaluated actually 8 proposals. We have notified this week the top scoring agencies and we'll interview them next month. So we're anticipating to award the contract sometime in November, so for council's approval. I think that's
Great.
all I have. If you're ready. have Miss Emily Groth. Oh, do
Jackie,
you have a
just,
question for
just
me? Okay.
one thing. Thank you very much for this. It looks
Yes.
good. I look forward to reading through it at home this week, or during next month or whatever. But would you be able to follow up and send us a list of those projects that aren't either completed
Oh, yes.
or haven't been started yet, so that we can see the whole inventory, if you will?
Okay, yes, I will provide that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Good evening, Planning Commission.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Be nice to her. It's her first meeting of the
Oh,
planning
good.
commission. Stay on your-
Oh, God.
Yep.
Yeah, fresh meat. I brought the band with me tonight.
Yeah.
As Jackie stated, I'm Emily Groth. I'm in the Public Works Department, environmental program manager, so I help oversee some of the green spaces, a lot of the environmental initiatives, big and small, as well as the very coveted solid waste and recycling strategies in the city. So tonight, I wanted to provide you an update that council had seen previously, just to kind of bring you in at the ground level.
Bring your microphone. There we go.
Yeah, I wanted to provide you an update that council has seen. We're at the initial stages, but I kind of wanted to bring you guys in at the ground level just to kind of keep you up to date on where we're at. And so tonight we'll go over our recent solid waste survey results and potential discussion of direction for a solid waste management plan. And this is the framework from the comprehensive plan and strategic plan to develop a citywide solid waste strategy as well as a citywide recycling strategy. Though I do want to preface that we're at the initial stages of this discussion. So tonight, I wanted to provide a brief staff update. Myself and Sarah Leaders were able to visit a few of the recycling center visits, and this gave us a good kind of in-person scope on what we're looking for as an end result. We visited Cherokee County's recycling center, as well as the Center for Hard to Recycle Materials, operated by the nonprofit Live Thrive in downtown Atlanta. And we also visited the city of Roswell's recycling center. And that kind of gave us a good way to visualize the logistics needed for something like that. But back to tonight, I wanted to share the survey results that we recently did regarding current satisfaction rates and utilization among our residents regarding solid waste and recycling services, current services. And then tonight, we'll also dive into the beginning stages of the management plan, as well as city and state guidelines and potential planning partners. So starting with some previous engagement, we have input that you guys are very well familiar with from the comprehensive plan and strategic plans. And these plans highlighted the importance of citywide strategies to utilize sustainable best practices. And the graphic on the right notes the 3 most favorable recycling options from the comprehensive plan, with a regional recycling center being number 1. More recently, we can refer to the National Community Survey that was led by Communications Director Greg Patello and presented to Council on August 1st at the regular City Council meeting. And these 3 solid waste topics on the chart to the left reflected kind of the highlights of the questions that were asked. And I want to keep in mind that the results of the survey reflect kind of a poor time for labor shortages and issues in the industry back in early spring of this year. And the chart on the bottom was a unique question that we tacked on to the National Community Survey. And it references the most favorable recycling option from the comprehensive plan, a regional facility. And so now we'll move into the most recent form of public engagement, our solid waste survey. The survey was released on Facebook and email on July 18th, and it was open for 2 weeks, and we received 679 responses. The intent of the survey was to gather interest and satisfaction rate of our current solid waste and recycling system. And tonight we'll analyze those results, kind of keeping trash and recycling separate, 2 separate systems and questions. And so starting with an overview of our haulers, you can see the most popular one is waste management. The other category makes up several other haulers with minimal percent utilization, including Red Oak, Sanitation, Kincaid, and Custom Disposal. And then over on the left, you can see that overall survey respondents were generally satisfied, opposing what was listed in the comprehensive plan, 71% unsatisfied. And then lastly, one of the first questions that we asked were if the respondents could organize their expectation of haulers in order of importance, with reliability being number 1 and accessible services such as driveway access being number 4. Next, we asked the question, would you prefer that a single contracted waste hauler provide all trash, recycling, and related services in Milton? We had 66% favor this reduction in haulers, echoing the priority project listed below from the comprehensive plan. Perform due diligence to support solid waste strategy aimed at reducing approved providers and providing competitive service suitable for both urban, suburban, and rural residents. And so while the majority of respondents were in favor of a single hauler, some important points of opposition that I do want to note are that competition drives adequate pricing. Residents do have the option to switch providers if they want to, if they feel it's needed. Some respondents utilize a specific hauler that provides that accessible services like driveway access or backdoor service. And some respondents are just generally satisfied with their current provider. So if there's no questions relating to those few questions that we went over, I can go back or we can go into recycling.
On the trash, did you do any further analysis of input and comments were they in a subdivision? Were they open road? Were they was the service provided by their HOA? Did you do any more demographics? Because I think you will find in the more open areas, people need the choices because we've had trash haulers refuse to pick up in some places, even though they're the biggest one on this list. And, luckily there is someone that will do that.
Right.
So I don't know if that was considered as you did your analysis, as opposed to, well, we looked at, every single are in a subdivision, so they all voted this way, but necessarily serve the open road people.
Right, yeah, it's always been a consideration and still is. It just wasn't specifically called out in this survey. But I do understand that sentiment. So if there's no other questions relating to trash, I'll go into some of the recycling questions, starting with the glass bin at Bell Memorial Park. Surprisingly, there's only 32% current utilization from the respondents, which doesn't seem to reflect how often that bin gets filled up, which ultimately can be a good problem to have. 68% of the respondents either have not used it, were unaware that it was there, or noted that the location was inconvenient. And at that point, we offered a space to provide alternative locations, with Crabapple area, Providence Park, and Birmingham Park rising to the top for tentative potential glass bin recycling location. Then we asked if their specific hauler provides recycling, and a combined 16% either do not provide recycling or were unaware if this service even exists. We also asked the respondents to select which type of partnership for hard to recycle materials, like things like plastic bags and glass that don't normally go in your curbside bin, what kind of partnership they would foresee, with 76% echoing the location for a location in Milton rather than a regional location. And lastly, it's just good to see that we have 82% general support for other sustainability projects and initiatives. So our last response that we asked is the proposed utilization if various services were offered in Milton. So we listed all those off there on the left, and they were able to select all, none, some of them, and those highlighted ones in brown rose to the top. And those are electronics recycling, bulky item drop-off, paint collection site, household hazardous waste collection site, and glass recycling. And there was some minor interest in services like composting or aluminum can recycling. And so this question could kind of reflect a need in increasing or improving some of the services that we do already have in place. And so if there's no questions about trash or survey results or recycling questions, we can move on to some light discussion of the recycling solid waste plan. So these are some of the components that I touched on in the beginning. We've just covered public engagement, and now we'll kind of move into state and city guidelines and various planning partners, all of which make up a recycling solid waste system, if you can visualize something like that. So on this slide, I wanted to provide context on the past and present role of the state when planning and forming a solid waste management plan. So Milton's first and only solid waste management plan was written in 2008, adopted in 2009, and accounted for the next 10 years up until 2018. And that's really the last one we have. We still reference it, but some things have changed as far as state guidelines. And so at that time, the plan was required and reviewed by the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. And since then, the DCA loosened their involvement in solid waste management plans. And so now the DCA lists general requirements for a plan, but does not require review and approval. And so generally, a plan should provide adequate solid waste collection and disposal capability and capacity, enumerate the size and type of solid waste handling facilities, and identify sites that are not suitable for facilities such as these. So considering these factors, our new plan should highlight these, but also account for some new challenges that I'm sure we have all experienced. We'll need updated capacity and status of regional landfills and materials recovery facilities like recycling facilities. And we'll also need to include the impact of industry and labor shortages and an increasing population. So now onto the local level. City operations include ongoing guidelines and programs overseen and implemented by staff. Current city guidelines include our ordinance, Chapter 46, and some requirements in that ordinance are that we expect our waste haulers to provide recycling and yard waste collection, continued education and communication with their residents in their home contracts, as well as updated insurance. Another one of our guidelines that we oversee is our annual renewal process for our haulers, which includes review of those insurance policies and authorization of the trucks that are on the road. And lastly, something that staff oversees as far as some guidelines are quarterly reporting their infrastructure maintenance fees and tonnage, and we also get a yearly tonnage when we do our annual renewals. And so separate from the guidelines, we also have some ongoing programs like the glass bin that I mentioned, some recycling events. We just had one last Saturday out at Bell Park, collected a good amount of stuff, kept it out of the environment, paint and hazardous waste collections, and electronics recycling, as well as some other programs like Earth Day and Rivers Alive. And so separate from the state and local level are other stakeholders, and I wanted to touch on those because they're very important. And a lot of valuable input can be found in these groups. So some comparable municipalities is Forsyth County. They just updated their solid waste management plan, and theirs goes until 2032. And Alpharetta still has one of the newest, oldest ones ending in 2021. Our waste haulers is also a important stakeholder group. We have 11 residential and commercial total. Planning Commission, you guys have some valuable input, and I hope to kind of give you some updates along the way. Also for some consideration and further discussion is third-party expertise that could provide data collection and analysis, and a committee, a trash recycling and sustainability committee, similar to CPAC. And a committee like this was also utilized in the 2008 to 2018 solid waste plan. So piecing all these components together, you get the city, state, and stakeholders, and they kind of all work together to tackle this this large problem and hopefully kind of work together to fix it. We're at the ground level at the initial stages, but I just kind of wanted to give you guys an update and bring you in, and I'm open to any feedback, and I'll be sure to keep staff in the loop and they can report to you as needed. Here if you guys have any questions.
Very nice job, very informative.
Thank you.
Good to know.
Question, Emily, will the proposed update on the plan also include the plan for dealing with the landfill that's in Milton?
I believe right now, those are two separate projects ongoing.
When's the anticipated completion of the plan?
The short-term work program has it for 2024.
2024?
Yeah, so I would, at least at this point, I would stick to that year, that date, that timeline.
One of the questions, I don't know if it was covered in survey, timing, like paint was past 2 years, I have requested being notified by our staff here that late, that there was the capacity had to handle that was not there. Get in on the first 5-minute phone calls, bring pain or whatever.
Right, yeah. I think the main reason for that is funding. The event like that is pretty coveted to about 200, 250 people. And that's just due to, if you account per car, $100 per car of whatever nasty stuff that they want to get rid of.
They accepted 250.
It's usually, it fluctuates every year, but in the past, it's always been an average about 200 or 225, 250
That they accepted.
that the city accepts, just based on our budget for that event, our yearly budget.
Emily, what time did that, I know it opened Friday,
Close
not one of the
quick.
spots. How long, I think it was 45 minutes and they were sold out.
Yeah.
It was indeed. It was 45 minutes exactly, yeah.
And just a comment I would make. I think the hazardous paint type materials, it's a real issue. The only other option you have is to go all the way to South Atlanta. So we're really not doing environmental work if we're not, regardless of whether it's us or we form a group of, Forsyth, Cumming, Roswell, whatever. I mean, 250 and you sold out in 45 minutes is not going to get it done. I mean, and you've got to also look at the other issue that you've got lots of renovations, lots of buildings still happening. Where's that stuff going? I mean, and not everybody is using, folks that have dumping capability. They might be doing their own DIY projects. And so they've got leftover hazardous waste and there's nowhere for it to go. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bigger issue
Absolutely.
than a dot on a project plan. It's, we've been kind of toying with this for a while and we haven't really we don't have a plan. I mean, and the problem isn't going away. It's actually getting worse. So, I mean, I don't have the answer, but I know there's got to be one soon because if I'm calling and in 45 minutes, I can't even get in, where I used to be able to, back before 2019, I actually had luck, but I have no luck now, and me and a whole slew of other people. And then I've got neighbors complaining, hey, did you try and do, people aren't happy. I mean, it's the general sense at this point. So
They go down to Roswell and they're getting told.
they won't take it. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you got to go down to Atlanta. I mean, that's really your, and then you've got to look at that. Okay, now we're using gas and we're doing that pollution. There's some bad trade-offs there is my point. And on the hauler side, I did see on that survey where they were a mention of a single hauler. I'd be really careful about doing that for a whole slew of reasons. I mean, and obviously, pricing would be one, but in the trucking and transport and hauling industry, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now. I work in that area, and there's so many dynamics you can't control, which are similar to supply chain issues. So you may think that's a good decision, or a group might think it's a good decision, but you really need to weigh a whole slew of options, because a lot of this stuff, you may think option one looks great, but if something happens, you've got no backup. And that would be my only comment on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I understand and appreciate all the sentiments. They've been heard and they're getting louder as we go on, and it's a heavy lift, but it's an important one. So I value your input from here on out.
Aren't there also service groups like the Boy Scouts and so, don't they have hazardous collection
Used
where
to.
you pay something and do that? I thought I read somewhere that there was some of that out there. was just saying-
They did. Well, I know I went to one that was hosted by, I believe it was Boy Scouts.
Yeah, I think so. That might be something the city would look into as a short-term fix, promoting those until we get an overall plan together, at
Yeah.
least informing people, again, like you said, if you sold out in 45 minutes, you have 250, it's obviously a good conduit to the, to what's going on. So maybe if the city were to promote that in the meantime,
Yeah.
help out the service organizations and help out the waste issue and help out the citizens. So you might want to check into that.
Yeah, I'm on that point exactly. We had a paint recycling that was sponsored by Cambridge Theater at Cambridge High School the weekend before. So I think that was kind of good timing on your point there.
Okay, yeah, and again, if we can do that, if we can,
Right, exactly.
build it up in the meantime and alert everybody, and again, I think it would help everybody.
Yeah,
Win, win,
absolutely.
win. Okay,
I know, my daughter lived in Gwinnett County. She had single service. It was absolutely, neighbors every week were complaining. They either truck broke down, so they skipped them for 2 weeks. There was no backup. You were just stuck. What Laura is saying would be I think, have to have a backup plan, especially in the size geography that we have.
Yeah, you've got driver shortages. You've got limited truck supplies because supply chain issues. They're not able to add additional assets to their fleet because they're not available because there are components that they can't get. So, I mean, I can go on and on a long list of items, but those are two big ones. So,
I know personally, given the demand in Milton, whether it's for the glass recycling bin that is constantly being emptied or for 45-minute hazardous waste sellouts, or other kinds of demands, I'd focus priority on trying to solve the short-term demand for recycling and put less emphasis on the trash haulers and let the market prevail. And I think a bigger issue for Milton is, where's it going to go? Got to have a landfill strategy. Because I thought that was part of the CPAC, was to have a plan for
it was.
that.
It was, yeah, there were.
My priorities would be more short-term recycling, long-term landfill. Let capitalism take care of the trash haulers.
Yeah, I think we had a fairly large discussion, if I remember, on that topic in CPAC. So, yeah.
I'd like to second the, or maybe third, the free market option, because without competition, I think that'd be really bad. I'd also like to follow on with Judy's question about the survey. Is the actual survey available for us to see? Like, where can we see those questions?
I believe I can download a completed copy.
Okay. And then do we have
I'll
data?
follow up with you with Robin and Jackie on that.
Okay. Do we have data that shows who the respondent is, like what kind of house they live in or what kind of community, multifamily, single family? Is all that tied together or not?
No, we did not ask about demographics on this survey.
Yeah, that could be confusing or misleading if we
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah, and important to note that this is one of the many aspects of public engagement
Yeah.
as we move forward with this. It's just kind of the initial soft opening of something like this on Facebook and email. But all of these considerations and input will be taken seriously.
So is a part of the analysis kind of what the city services that city could provide versus what the waste management companies could provide?
An analysis regarding the survey results?
No, just in general, in terms of kind of the analysis for the short-term work program, like, is that a part of what you are going to be reviewing and determining going forward? You know, is this something that, how much the city can handle in terms of city services that could be provided versus, hey, we're relying on the waste management companies to provide those services?
Yeah.
That's a part of this
Yeah, absolutely.
analysis?
I think that's one of the bigger aspects of the entire strategy as a whole.
Right. Okay.
Their city and waste haulers are one of the two biggest players in a conversation like this. So
And then a part of that analysis, I mean, I don't know, are we able to even dictate through ordinances or something like that where the services that a hauler can provide if they want to service in this area?
yeah. Our Chapter 46, our solid waste ordinances, they do have, that's kind of what binds our approved or non-approved haulers.
Mhm.
But right now it's requirement to offer recycling, yard trimmings, and insurance.
So we could specify the type of recycling that approved hauler has to provide in the city of Milton?
I would imagine, yeah, you could really codify, you can really kind of flesh it out. Right now, it's pretty high level. But ultimately, the ordinance, what's in the ordinances determines whether a hauler is approved or not.
Okay.
And that
I
would
mean,
go,
okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure then,
Yeah.
from that analysis standpoint, obviously, again, I'm not trying to, take out the competition because, if it's an overload, but obviously I just want to make sure that you and the city are researching even other jurisdictions in terms of what their ordinances say and, what they specify in there. And then they still have 11 haulers
right,
who are participating in that area. And then, you've got that competition.
yeah,
But then at least then we can almost kind of at least show that, hey, the haulers have to provide these services to be able to service our area and they don't want to lose this market. And so provide these services. And if all 11 do provide them, and then they can work out the pricing. But at least now we know that they have to provide those services and we're doing that through, ordinances or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, I just want to make sure that that's a part of kind of the research and the analysis.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
different exemptions and things like that. Yeah.
And how is that market? Are we getting a lot of people that want to, join those 11, or is that number shrinking? Is that growing? Is there competition to get into service City Milton, or?
I would say right now it's pretty stagnant.
Okay.
A lot of these companies are dealing with the various issues that we all know.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure too many are willing to grab new markets or new residents. So there's not really too much
I just wonder
positive.
what kind of interest we'd have, or what kind of ability we have to put further restrictions on it, if we're going to
Right.
push people away, or if we've got enough standing around
Yeah.
that want to do it, so.
Right.
Okay, any other
Thank you guys for your time.
trash and recycling?
Thank you.
Thank you, very nice job.
Thanks.
Thank you.
First time's always the hardest. Ask
Oh, yeah.
Robin, after 400 or 500 of these, it's easy.
Good evening, Commissioners. Switching gear here.
Welcome.
Okay, so I'm Shubha Jangam, a senior planner at the city. I'm here to give you update on urban growth boundary project and also later large lot zoning project. So just a quick recap, you might remember our project title was like perform due diligence and planning to implement the urban growth boundaries. I had made first presentation to you in July. You were not here, but you can check out the video where I kind of introduced the project. And this project actually stemmed from comprehensive plan, and many of the planning commissioners were at CPAC committee. They were on that. So we had divided this project into two parts: study and explore, due diligence part, and then building the consensus part, if you remember. So, and you might also remember this project schedule of data analysis, due diligence, and the second part of planning and implementation. So we are here in September, and I have actually done much of a research and due diligence. And just this month, beginning of this month, I presented to City Council, and they expressed interest to move on. So so we will be moving on to the next phase of the project. And in that presentation to City Council, I covered a lot of items that I collected as part of due diligence, such as case studies, our IGA with Fulton County, our land use was a big part of it. And so based on that, they had told me that, yes, we can move on. So the next steps for this project are really, first we need to have a stakeholder or advisory committee to obviously steer this project in the right direction. We are recruiting planning commissioners for this committee, and some of you will be right fit. We also are looking for local business leaders or builders and land developers in Milton, representative of different neighborhoods, leaders from the nonprofit organizations. Please let me know if you have anybody right fit, so that we can form a good committee from many walks of life and many backgrounds, so we can do this project.
In a perfect world, how many planning commissioners would you want?
I don't really have any number in mind, so if you all are interested, you're all in.
Thanks.
Okay.
Talk about planning commission business.
Oh, yeah.
Oops.
So the next steps, so this committee will actually look into the data and deliberation of whatever data that I have gathered. I will present to the committee again, and they can deliberate on it. They can actually plan for where this boundary will go in the city, and they will also kind of discuss or draft the policies for the bounded area and the rural area. So and finally, they will also create some kind of draft for modification or appeal process to this urban growth boundary. So all these activities will be included in the next step whenever we do the workshop or something like that. I don't have any dates for the schedule, but we will be moving forward. So if you have any questions, I can answer on this project. Otherwise, I go. No?
No? I guess my only question is, do any commissioners know right now they'd like to be part of this? Or I guess we can follow up with that. If anybody's interested, we can, let me know, and I'll
Yep.
forward it on.
Great.
It would help to know kind of the general timing or.
We are forming it actually next month. I mean, we need to know people before we can actually schedule, because we won't go through a holiday actually. If we have to have a workshop, we'll have it either in beginning of November or December. We won't do anything in this beginning of November or January. I mean, no, we won't do anything during the holidays. But we are actually making the list right now, and obviously city manager will look at it, Bob will look at it, and we will finalize it.
I'd be willing to volunteer.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else is.
How long is the commitment?
I think it shouldn't take more than 6 months, but we don't want to rush through it. But it should be a couple of workshops, some kind of policies. And we have actually, I have to draft the policies if I have to. Yeah, we have a contract with TSW for the next project, but for UGB, we don't have contract. So based on whatever steering you will do to me, we'll have to create the draft policies and the map. That's most important part of the project. So
I'd be willing, I'm just not available in October because I'm working early voting.
Ah, okay.
okay, so moving on to the larger lot zoning. This is again a project that stemmed from comprehensive plan. These were the top 3 comments that you are seeing that we received during the comprehensive plan. And so CPAC committee wanted to pursue the larger lot zoning categories and associated uses and incentives for those larger lots. Obviously, this means creating a new zoning districts of AG 5, 10, or 20, something like that. So a little history on this one. Actually, we had in 2019, we're working on a project that on similar concept, where it was more focused on equestrian types of land uses. And so we had worked with Milton's equestrian committee. And I think I also presented to Planning Commission in 2020, beginning of 2020 or something. And then we started comp plan and stuff like that. So that project was on hold. But we will build on whatever feedback we got from those meetings, and we'll build on that information, and we will reconvene as CPAC has given us new life, I guess, to this project. So since we are reconvening, we will be revisiting the issues that we had heard many times, like loss of existing farms, loss of large estate lots, loss of equestrian land use, fragmentation of natural habitat. And this is funny one, misunderstanding the AG1 zoning. You guys don't know how much we deal with this. Like people think that they are agriculturally exempt because of just the name of AG1. So there is an idea that we can just blanketly change the name of the zoning to something else, like rural estate 1. I don't know. We'll come up with something. So, the goals and objectives are identify the most incentives that will, it could be related to land use, it could be related to zoning regulations, it could be related to procedure, permitting procedure. We will identify all those incentives to give to this large lot people who are down zoning, really. So we will create a nice package for them that is desirable to preserve the large lot. So that's the idea, and that's the project, really. This is not your one priority project. This wasn't. So we're taking time. We are still in a project development phase, but we'll work on this as soon as we, kind of get another committee. Actually, we do need another committee for this one.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Well, is this I may be off, is this the transfer development rights? Do they play into this also? The transfer development TDRs?
TDRs is a good incentive. We already have that.
Okay.
And that's a lot of incentive, actually. We thought about giving more, but I'm not getting yes from Robin.
Okay.
So, I think we're going to look at, we already had done a brainstorming session, and I think we're on a good trajectory of coming up with things. And we're kind of, even though we don't want to rush it, we don't want to make it slow, because we just feel like this is really an important issue. And as Shubha alluded, there's some connections with, almost 85–90% of the city is zoned AG1, of which a lot of them are within platted subdivisions, but there's a lot of just open road type lots. And I think majority of those people use it as their single family residence. And then there's other people who feel like that they can just because they're AG1, they can be exempt from all the rules and regulations. And so that, I think this is another, another tool that we're really going to try to attempt to really stop some illegal practices, because there truly are not. The city attorney recently at the council meeting has basically said there are no really legitimate bona fide commercial agricultural businesses here. I mean, it's not like North Georgia with the chicken houses. It's not like South Georgia or Middle Georgia with huge amounts of crops that are producing, food for the region. So we've come into multiple times of people feeling like, okay, because I'm AG1, I can claim all these exemptions of stormwater regulations and stream buffer regulations and tree canopy and the whole 9 yards. So I think it's kind of pushed us to really deal with it. So, yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Good job. So now we're done with 7. We go to 8, the old business. Our friend, the UDC, draft version 4.
Robin, before we do that, I was looking over the minutes of the last plat, and I had a talk with a resident who had been, say, 4 or 5 months ago, that we had a plat, and suggestions were made from us,
Right.
moving it forward. Do we have any way of capturing what accepted or?
So what we do is I can listen to the tape and thank you. So we basically go back and your motion that you all make as making recommendations, we take that list of items, and then when we forward a approval letter to the applicant for the subdivision, then we list all the items that you all have stated. And then when they come in for their land disturbance permit, then we make sure that they've addressed those issues. So, and I will say, sometimes 1 or 2 or 3 of those comments tend to be what we already require anyway, but we still put it in the letter. And so for instance, for Heartwood, which was the one on Broadwell, you all talked about parking. And so when they've come in for their LDP, they've added some parking. Is it enough? I'm not sure, but they did more than what they presented to you. So definitely your input has an impact on how the subdivisions are developed. So
Public has no really way of finding out what they said.
well, if they're that interested, they can contact us, and once the land disturbance permit comes in, then they can look at it. It's public record. So, I mean, it's not like we go back and respond to all the people we sent notices to, but if they're interested enough, and we've had occasion where people have been, they'll call us up and say, hey, I was at that meeting about that plat, what's going on with it? So we do have some people reaching back out.
Well, that was what?
Yeah.
I didn't know what direction.
Yeah. If somebody has a question about it, send them back to me. And between me and Tracy, who also works on the plats, we can help them out. Sometimes people do a preliminary plat and they end up not actually going through and developing it. It just stops. So just because you get a preliminary plat approval doesn't mean it's going to come to fruition or not. So, okay. So, as you can see, Caleb is not here. He already had previous engagement we knew about previously. So I'm here to answer any questions. I know that we gave you back the same articles that you originally were reviewing. So, if you guys have any like general comments first, and then I can try to answer any other questions and just go from there. So,
Some of my suggested corrections weren't made.
can you put your thing?
Oh, pardon?
Yeah, just get closer to your.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Some of the corrections that I suggested haven't been made. And so how do I funnel that into you or to Caleb or whomever?
Right. So I think there was editorial decisions made, many times the edits were, okay, yeah, definitely that needs to be
These
changed.
were typos that I'm talking about.
They were typos.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then, yeah, we'd like to know what they are so we can fix that.
And how would I get that information to you here right now or?
Whatever you feel better about. I mean, if you want to I know you'd asked for the edits, the red lines, and I think you got them, right?
I did, yes.
Okay. It might be easier if they're just purely typos and that type of thing. Just go ahead and list them, maybe like what you did before.
Shall I just send you an email in that
Yes.
case? Okay,
Mhm.
that'd be easy.
Yeah.
All right. With regard to the more substantive comments that I made last time and others made last time, I noticed that mine weren't included. And I understand that during a month's time, you probably didn't have enough time to go back and figure out how to do the brightness and lumens versus wattage.
So I would like to address that. I feel like that's a bigger topic than even just fixing it. And I talked to Bob about it,
Mhm.
that definitely it's a bigger lift than I think that we're ready right now to do, but to, put it on our to-do list, to look at it more specifically and thoroughly to be able to make the right changes. So that's definitely heard, but it's not going to happen with this UDC edits. But
Okay.
after we finish in the spring, then we'll go ahead and put that as one of our projects to work on.
Okay, why do we need to get it done in the spring? Why can't we do it now?
To be honest, we have a full plate.
Yeah.
And as you can see, there's a lot of projects going on as well as our daily plan review and everyday working. So we just right now do not have the capacity to do that this second.
Okay, I just struggle with putting something forward that we know is flawed, especially when this was part of the comprehensive plan, not the most recent comprehensive plan, but the comprehensive plan 2016. So this has been out there for more than 5 years. And I'm sort of struggling right now to understand why we can't get something like this done in a 5-year period. So I have difficulty not taking the time to do this and do it the right way. So for instance, let's just take a step back now. After tonight's meeting, I'm going to give you typos. Other people will give you typos. What happens next? It goes to the people, right, for public review?
Correct. We want to have a public kickoff to be able to expose it. I mean, obviously it's on the web. I mean, it's not like we're hiding it, but to be honest, I haven't gotten any feedback from people because it's a public meeting. But so it's not like we've hidden it away.
Right.
It's out there. But officially to have a kickoff so they can have input on, if there's any feedback or questions, that's the next step.
So you get that input from the public over the course of the next month, the month of
Correct.
October. And then what happens?
Then after that, we have to have review through the city attorney has to review the entire document and he's aware of that. And we've spoken to him about
Not taking
about what
vacation?
amount of time.
Yeah. okay.
Yeah.
No Thanksgiving turkey for you.
That's all right, there won't be any.
Yeah. So, and then I believe the schedule was to start the official text amendment in January, either December or January. I'd have to look at the schedule because it's changed. So the goal is to be, to start that process, between any other final edits as well as any input from the city attorney, from the public, and then to do those edits and then present it, to start with the CZIM and then go through planning commission. And I think we have a couple meetings set aside for planning commission
Okay.
in the schedule, and then to go to city council for a couple of meetings as well.
So when it comes back to planning commission for those couple of meetings, again, you're not expecting to be able to tackle the lighting issue, if I heard you correctly before. Is that right?
I mean, I can go back and ask Bob if.
No, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
understand
I mean-
what you're thinking of
I mean,
here.
I think would prefer that we wait to be able to tackle it, after the fact, just like how we have all these other scheduled tasks that we've been working on. So
when it does come back to us for those two meetings, what are you going to be asking us to do?
I mean, again, it's just a final review, just like you would a text amendment. Like, I know obviously it's, a little ant compared to a huge, elephant or something, like the text amendment tonight. I mean, we present what we're doing and then we ask for any input or whatever. And then it goes on to city council and then onward. So, I mean, I think the goal is not to have a lot of changes when it comes back to you for the text amendment, because we want it to be basically, 98% done.
Yeah, well, at least in my section, there were 2 points that I felt to be substantive that I felt would be dealt with. But what I'm hearing you say is when you bring it back to us, you're looking for us to do typos again. Is that, that's the essence of it?
I mean, hopefully we've resolved, there has been changes done as far as trying to make it more streamlined, and we've worked with the city arborist in this last edition to make things more consistent and more user-friendly. So there hasn't been really any, and I'm not saying necessarily lighting is policy changing, but as far as it's just wanting to make sure it's done correctly. So,
So I'm, unfortunately I was, gone the last 2 meetings. And, I've spoken to, one-offs on folks on the commission, and I've, looked through some of the documents. And I guess for me, I'm struggling with, after hearing input, now hearing this, I think I need clarification on what is the purpose of this document? Because I'm trying to understand, who is this for? What is it for? I mean, it's not clear. I mean, I'm coming out, I'm out of the blue, just looking at this. Nobody's told me anything other than a little bit here and there. Okay, so I'm coming at this with, new eyes. Okay, look at it that way. So first of all, I'm looking through things. I'm like, okay, who's the audience? What's it for? I hear the public's looking at that. So I'm trying to understand, what's the use of the document? What is it for? Because it's not clear to me. And that should be clear to me.
So, and when Caleb was here a couple of times ago, he did explain that, and it's always been the goal from the very beginning, the purpose of this document is to bring together various parts of the city code that are development related. So we have subdivision regulations in chapter 50. We have, the tree ordinance in whatever chapter that was. We have environment in chapter 20. So we have different parts of development codes within the city code. Not everything is in the zoning code. And so one of the goals is to bring all these different pieces that are kind of strewn across the city code into one document. And so that it becomes more easier for the citizen or the developer to be able to find exactly what are they supposed to be following when they build a house, or when they build a subdivision, or when they build a commercial development. They understand, okay, everything is going to be in here that makes sense to be in here. So that's one of the overall biggest purposes of this document. And what Caleb talked about too, and we've talked about, is trying to make it to be user-friendly, not just not just bringing all the different codes together, but to be able to not have it so, legalese, so to speak. So I think he's worked on some of the verbiage, not to be so either technical or legal, but at the same time, still preserving what the requirements are. So there's some changes in the edits. It's changes in the wording to try to make it more to normal people speak, so to speak. Okay, so that's the second part. Also, obviously I've been here the whole 15 years. Over the years, we've had multiple edits or changes to the zoning ordinance, and trying to make sure that that things all make sense together. And so that's this last edit we worked a lot on. I mentioned about landscaping and buffering, and there were, I think, to your point, there were different size caliper items for different landscape strips in this. I feel like we tried to work on that to make it more consistent. And so that's the type of thing we're trying to do, is to make it consistent across and not to be conflicting with one chapter with another chapter. And then also there still were some leftover, Fulton County stuff that just trying to clean up different issues and terminology that may no longer be valid. So it's basically to create a document that's why it's called a unified development code. It's not alcohol. We don't have alcohol in here. We don't have, other parts of, obviously we're going to have a big change. It's going to include alcohol, but we didn't put the alcohol ordinance in this because that's not development. So that's just an example of what we're trying to do with this document. So.
Okay, that helps.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry.
That actually did help, believe it or not.
Yes.
So I guess my comment in that light, on some of the standards and tables, just from a readability perspective, some of them are a bit small and somewhat hard to understand. So if I, as a citizen, wanted to look at that, there's
if you
some
have
that,
comments, please just write them and then just
they need
send
to
them
be
to me. I agree. I think as far as the form-based code, so when Caleb created the form-based codes in 2012 and 2014, the way that you do it is there's a standardized set of code, and then you pick and you choose. And I think for some areas of it, it's not always the best tailored for us. So I'm totally open to that, to make it easier and more understandable.
okay. And then more of a general question on I've been looking through the Deerfield part, and this is something we can take offline, but some of the wording in a couple of the initial pages seem more not, kind of here's what we're doing versus here's what we'd like to do sort of thing. So my thing would be, it needs to represent what today is. I mean, I don't know what tomorrow looks like. Hopefully it'll be different. But there were some words in there that were aspirational, and that's not reality in Deerfield. And so to me, if we're going to be accurate, it needs to reflect reality. And then my other comment is, why are we talking about TDRs in Deerfield? There are people not happy with TDRs in the business area because of a couple of projects that have not gone well with TDRs. So I just, on a separate offline, that needs to be dealt with somewhere else. Like, we need to
As
talk.
far as a receiving site?
Yeah, we need to talk about it.
Okay, we
It's a
can talk about
I
it.
mean, just as something in a different work issue. But I'd be really careful if Deerfield Highway 9 folks were reading this. They may not be happy seeing that. That's all I'm going to say. TDRs are not popular over there. I mean, you may look at it as a great tool for the people with the lots, but guess what? On the receiving side, it hasn't been executed well.
Okay,
And-
so I mean, I'd love to talk
Yeah,
offline. and we
happy
can have a
to.
discussion.
And I think we have some council members that are also in line with that.
Okay,
So,
well, we'd love to hear it because I haven't heard it directly. So like to get some input on that.
yeah, I think it needs to be, it's got to be somewhere. It's a topic. And I think there's got to be, it can't be we just look at the lots. I mean, we all like the rural area, but we also have to say, whatever urban areas on the receiving end, it has to be executed in a better manner. And it hasn't been on a couple projects. So, and I'll leave it at that, and we can have that discussion offline.
Coming back,
Following up to Laura's comments, because there were things as I was going through, not as big as we need a discussion on TDR, but I think would be good is if we had, as you said, the list of things we want to work on that may be offshoots from this.
Right.
Like, for example, one of the things as I was going through here and the discussion on restaurants was the definition of a restaurant is it's open for 6 days. Well, we might have a high-end restaurant that wants to come in and only be open for 5 days, and that might make sense. But the current requirement is 6. I checked, it says 6. But like I made a note for future consideration, can we look at 5 versus 6 days for restaurants? I know a lot of them were having trouble getting labor too. So some of them actually cut to 5 days, whether they were permitted to or not. And another thing too is I'm reading the requirements for a gas station. The pumps have to be in the back. And I was like, what gas station has the
Well,
pumps?
I
in
will
it?
address that. I saw that comment in your
Yeah.
comment. So it is very, it was very purposeful for that because we have a new gas station coming up at Arnold Mill at, by the landfill, by,
further
okay.
north.
And so the pumps are going to be behind the building.
Okay.
It's totally, we don't want, if we have the druthers of how it's going to be developed, that's exactly what we
Okay.
wanted. So that's very
Okay.
intentional.
Okay, because I was like, I've never
I
seen
know
a
right
gas
now
station
it's
like
not,
that.
I know that's not, but that's exactly why we changed the development regulations for gas
Okay,
stations.
I'll turn that off. But I think it would be good to have like a list of, Ron had some suggestions about lighting. I think, some suggestions about how many days restaurants. I didn't change it in here because that is the current code. And so it would be a text amendment we need to consider. Just general comments and going through, and I had use permits, is there were times where some things got combined, which kind of made sense until you looked at where they came from. And maybe this one, like, oh, we combined livestock pens into agricultural operations, but today Bob has to have special approval on livestock pens. So I was a little concerned of, in an attempt to simplify, we may have lost some of the controls.
As far as like, if an individual wants to have a pen, it doesn't have to be a full-fledged agricultural operation. Is that's what you're saying? It's kind of I mean,
Well, in the current code, as I read it, if someone wants to have a livestock pen, that's something that has to be specific, like it needs an admin warrant. Whereas now it's kind of like lumped in with all the other agricultural operations, and it's just a little less restrictive than the current code. And it might make sense until someone wants to put a pigsty next to me, yeah.
yeah, and then we have the animal section, which kind of dictates
Okay.
different types of animals. So for hogs and pigs, it's different than for horses. And
Yeah,
the
I was
distance
going-
away and the numbers.
Yeah, I was going through some of that, but the whole idea of being able to have a livestock pen, and, yeah.
Okay, well, we
Yeah,
can look at that.
I just noticed it was currently slightly more restrictive, maybe, libraries and museums right now have slightly different requirements. We put them together, it might make sense, but it is different. So I noted some of those as kind of made sense, but they are different.
So I have something for you all that I struggled with when I was going through this, and Bob reminded me that's actually on the short-term work program, but I didn't realize it. I really struggled, and I talked to Bob about the section of Highway 9 that's still Highway 9 overlay district and is not part of the form-based code. And that's one of the things that it would make life so much simpler if everything was together. And I was like, and Bob's like, well, why don't you just do it? I said, no, Bob. We got to take time with this. I can't just do it. But at the same time, it is on our short-term work program. So I think once this is done with, if you guys are in agreement, I think along with the lighting, and I think that would be something I really want to take care of.
I think there were 2 or 3 things that I had in mind that we discussed it. You said, we kind of go back to that once this is finished.
Right, yeah.
Clarifying the text amendment.
Yeah. And I mean, I wasn't always in every meeting and knowing exactly everything what was in the short-term work program and what was the comp plan. And it's like, oh, that's one of the items, but just to, obviously that'll be another item to lift later on. So.
Yes, I think since I was part of the group that helped develop the overlay in the long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't even want to remember that. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I think there's a way to do it. We just have to be smart about it, because maybe it's, so I know when we had the whole group of folks here about what was that division, the small subdivision that's off of Crabapple?
Oh, Crabapple, yeah.
So I do know they're looking at special district. That might be more what we need to look at around there. I know that's coming up, and I think there's talk, maybe we should look at some of that for Highway 9 Deerfield. So maybe that's where that goes. I'm just saying we should think about it. We should look
Yeah.
at what the options are. And
I
I
think
get
that's
it
part
from
of-
where you guys are from. Yeah, it's like this thing that's still hanging out there.
Yeah, and I think part of that process would be doing kind of a mini plan, just like we did, the LCI and the plan for Deerfield, and then we had to do the upper part because it wasn't included in the LCI. So it's definitely a process. It's a planning process, and then looking at the code, and that's just another project to do.
So we're, I know we had some economic development stuff from the 2040 plan.
Yeah.
There were some stuff on Highway 9 Deerfield. Actually, there was quite a bit on Highway 9 Deerfield area. Where are we on some of those, and who's kind of spearheading that? Because I think this is somewhat a lot of this is really all related, because
Right.
it comes down to, number one, what is the look going to be moving forward? And then economic from an economic development perspective, how do we go to market and all of that? And it can't be what we've already done. Because it's not working. We've got to think about this for future. So I don't know where that's sitting on the big plan, and kind of who's going to spearhead that, but.
So one of the items that, spacing out at the end of the day, that was talked about tonight with Jackie, she mentioned the update of the LCI in conjunction with Alpharetta as well as with the North Fulton CID. So I think that's one of the items, and that does include a component of economic development of, there's a component of marketing and that type of thing, but it should be in the list of Jackie gave you the whole list, the short-term work program, and there should be a section that talks about economic development and where we are on that. So if you would like, and then at one of the next meetings, I can have Anita come, who is our economic development person, and kind of give you all an update on that.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that'd be great.
you guys can give her input about what your thoughts are. We can do that.
I think that'd be great.
On mine, Robin, you tell me that the changes that we discussed did get in the copy that you sent.
Right, so that cover page that Caleb produced.
Right.
When he said not reviewed, what he meant was by me.
Okay.
Not by you. So it's like when we spoke on the phone, you said, wait a minute, I did it. And so you definitely did. But there are some areas that I need to review. And then I'm finishing up with Jerry Oberholter, our engineer, for the environment section, different sections of that. We're going back through. So we've gotten through some of it. So that's what that's speaking of. So whatever your edits were, and if they were applicable, then they should have been changed.
In here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on two of my cover sheets, though, it said that it was incorporated city comments, but not updated to plain English and not proofread.
Right. So that's what,
12 and 13.
so he still has to have the proof, but and then what
Okay.
was the other comment? Update plain English, no. So that's what he still has to do.
Still has to work on
Yeah.
that for both of these.
Yeah.
So,
All of these will then be finished.
Yeah, he'll have it, he should have it finished, right. Oh, yeah, we'll do it before the public.
so then is that, like, for instance, on mine, which is section 12 and 13, is that going to come back?
That's up to you guys. You want it to come back? I mean, we can send it back to you before, we're not going to be ready to do the public probably we have to plan for it. So there's still going to be a leeway time. So we can get your sections back to you if you want to see it before we, start the public kickoff. I'm here, whatever you all want to do.
That's fine with me, yeah. Because again, when it says no to proofreading, what does that mean?
Right, we'll have it all done before we do the kickoff, but as far as, if you guys want to see it before that, we'd be more than happy.
And the reference to proofread here is not our proofreading.
Right,
but
it's his proofreader.
Yeah, he hired a proofreader.
Yeah. No, because one of mine has said, yes, it's been proofread. I'm assuming it's on their end. too.
Right, he had his,
The other two said that they haven't been yet, so I want to make sure.
Those still have to be proofread through his proofreader. Yeah.
Did he hire that proofreader after the last meeting?
Well, they didn't get through everything.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And then what happens for public review? What's the launch look like? Is that an email? Is that just
So
marker on the
it's,
webpage?
we're going to try to do a kickoff event. Originally, we had it for Wednesday, and to do it during, to have kind of a booth like during the farmer's market, because I thought that would be a great way. There are already a lot of people there, to be able to look. So that's one part of it, like some type of in-person, get feedback. The other way would have been if for like Crabapple Fest, if we were ready, I would have had a booth out there and I would have been out there trying, taking turns because you just have all these people there. But the other part is this software called Conveo. And so it's going to be put up on the web, and then they're going to be able to insert their comments or suggestions or questions. So I think you weren't at the meeting when I talked about that, but I can send you, I'll resend out to you all the links for this software. So,
That'd be
and that'll be up on the web, and our communications director will do a lot of, communicating to the community, because he does that really well, to let them know that. So I suspect most of the input would be through the internet. So
To that point, I think we need then to advertise, happen or something, that the people know what we've been doing in short, and we need your comments, not
And-
just say it's on the web.
No, I know. And so what this Conveo is exactly that. So if they click on the link to this topic, then there's going to be an introduction, and we can say, this is what we've done. We've met these many times. This is the goal of this document.
How
One,
do
two-
I know, how would I know, sitting out there, that we've done this? And you people, the community needs to take a look at it. How am I going to know that?
Like just even to go there to the, so I think, again, our communications director sends out the e-blast and the newsletter that goes generally to people.
Okay, that's
So
fine.
they'll say, hey, oh, okay. And
That's
he'll
all
give
I'm
a
saying.
hyperlink to this part. So I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's all I'm saying,
Yeah.
just to say, well, now we've put it on the web. We
No,
hope
no,
we
no, no,
hear
no. I'm
from
sorry.
somebody. Well,
We're going to be able to advertise that fact through our social media, through the newsletter, et cetera.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Robin, now that the people know about it, they're going to see something that's, 700 pages long. What do you want them to do with 500 or 700 pages?
Well, I mean, some
legitimately,
people
what do you
could
want them to
really,
do?
I mean, some people, they may not even really, I don't know what the reaction's going to be. I mean, I'm not, but hopefully the tool that we have would help them be able to navigate it if they're interested, and then give them an opportunity to ask questions. I don't know what the input's going to be. I can't remember for the comprehensive plan. I mean, that was a pretty,
Yeah.
it wasn't as large as this, but I'm not, I don't remember how it was socialized and what kind of input. I mean, how many comments did we get from Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Hopewell Road? I don't know.
Mhm.
To be honest, I live in city of Alpharetta, and I'm just I kind of know what goes on, and I even have relationships with people in our same department and planning. But do I get involved? No, not really. I mean, I sit on a board, but I mean, I'm not you. I mean, I'm not other people who are very involved.
Till they have an issue.
Exactly. Yeah.
When they have an issue,
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
when they're going to say, what am I to do? Then you can refer them. Well, I think, as Laura asked, I mean, principally, this draft finished fabulous, because we can then say, go directly to one place,
Mhm.
find out. But
Right.
I think it will only happen when somebody gets all upset about taking trees out and all that. They're going to call and say, hey, how do we, what can I do about this?
Right.
You can refer them.
11.2, 11.1. A couple of suggestions as far as the public engagement goes, because I think there will be people that maybe come to look at it that have had an issue, whether it's trees or noise or a subdivision went in next to me. I think to posit it such that, you don't have to read, it's organized such as a way, you don't have to read all
The whole
500
thing, right,
pages.
yeah.
We'd appreciate your comment on anything that's of interest to you. I think it's important the description you gave to Laura be very upfront. What's the purpose of this? Why are we doing this? And then I'd like to even see like a little 4 or 5 question survey at the end that kind of says, have you tried to access the old code? Do you find this to be easier to follow? Kind of checking to say, are we meeting our goals? And also check to see is this someone commenting that has never looked at a code before? Or is this somebody that has dug into it and can give an opinion as to, I like it better or I like it worse? But 4 or 5 questions, keep it
Right,
short.
keep it
but
short,
kind
yeah.
of, and focused around, do they feel it's helping to meet the goal of putting this all in one place and making it simplified?
Yeah, so
Good idea.
I'll give you an example. We were looking for the noise ordinance, and when we did the search, it came up with like all this stuff, and then we're like, well, but that's old. Then there was a new one, and it was not easy. Because we really needed it for something for the HOA, and I'm like, I don't know, can somebody call and clarify that, if that's been modified or not?
Right. So it's interesting because there was sections in the zoning that talked about noise ordinance, but then we had done environment in chapter 20. So that's been moved over and we've eliminated what was left over from whatever. So that's exactly a great point of hopefully it
That's
will
an example.
alleviate that. Simplify
And we'd be happy.
Yeah, and it might even say too, of when Greg does his publicity, kind of calling out that, hey, HOA board members might be,
Yeah, that's a great
developers
idea.
might be interested.
Good idea.
Those of you that have had
That's a great
a
idea.
particular interest in a topic might want to read
Mm-hmm.
this. So kind of like put a specific call, not just, hey, y'all.
No,
come
I
read
know. That's
this."
a great point. Yeah.
The question I got on plats,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
go there and see.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How are you defining success for public engagement?
I'm sorry, what?
How are you defining success for engaging public?
I think that's a great point. What about that survey? I mean, again, I think we go back to, it's a very small number of people who probably really have an interest in it.
If you get a dozen people, that'll be a lot.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's my concern. As a citizen, I would have never known this existed had I not been sitting here.
Right.
And I don't know why that is. 'Cause, I get the newsletters. I don't read everything.
Have a problem.
So I have a question for
The
you.
key.
Do you feel like the newsletters are too long? Too much information?
No, they're kind of,
I actually do.
you do.
Yeah, most people have this attention span, bullet me there, I do. It's just like, I'm like, okay. And then if I want to click on that, I'll go to the bigger stuff,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's almost like needing to be hyperlinked. So if you
Yeah,
want
I'm
to really
like
know about
scrolling
that,
through.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like on speed dial going,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know.
I thought they were pretty concise. I'm sorry to cut across. I thought they were, usually it's 3 or 4 kind of key bullet points, right?
Right,
And to Fred's point, if I don't care about it,
right.
I click on the ones I care about.
But I think it's
Mhm,
almost, I think that might be a good suggestion for the communications person that, yeah, you can have each topic and then you can click it on to get more depth instead of scrolling and
Yeah,
at least
with
that's
you.
my understanding, but
I
think
agree
that's
with
a good
you.
idea. But,
Wanted to make-
yeah, so I'm hoping it's not the most exciting thing. Some people could really care less about this if it, like you said, if it doesn't impact them, if nobody's treading on their, land, so to speak, then
Yep.
they're happy and they don't have any issues. So,
I think though it might be for your communications folks, it might be helpful for, HOA communities to send it out to the board who actually should know some of this stuff.
Right.
Because a lot of them don't and they think they do. And they're going to get into legal issues because we do have HOA Georgia laws. So, and then we do have covenants and bylaws, and some people fail to ignore it. And when they get sued, then they'll figure out why. So I do think HOA leadership, I think if you send out something very brief and say, this might really help your architectural committee and your board with complicated homeowner issues. Like you can click on and find your answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
So just a thought.
Yeah, no, that's a good suggestion.
That point, and I hate to bring it up, a lot of discussion on it, but where does all the alcohol you mentioned earlier, all that stand relative to
Mhm.
city?
Okay, so the first reading is going to be next Monday, and Steve is going to do, he's kind of dividing up instead of having all one big presentation. So the first reading is going to be on Monday, so it should be released by the end on Thursday. So I'll have my text amendments with all y'all's recommendations, and then he's going to have chapter 4, and we've been working together. I mean, I'm like, Steve, we need to make sure that I'm not putting something in that's contradictory to what you're saying. So the first read is Monday, the 3rd. And then there's going to be a work session on the 10th. And we're going to have another presentation where I'm going to probably do more of presenting what you all had recommended. And then on the final meeting, it's going to be the 17th. At least that's the projection. If something happens, he's built in some other options, but it would be the 17th if everything goes smoothly for everything to be adopted. So,
Want to dig deeper. Going to, because I pass it after every meeting. We'll have our
Piano bar?
restaurant.
Piano bar? Piano bar?
Without the piano?
Entertainment, but we had it classified.
That's the limited service restaurant?
Limited.
You're referring to the
service.
limited service restaurant?
No?
limited service, that's what you said, right?
Yeah.
Are you talking about Billy Allen's?
Yeah.
Okay, what about it? It's still there, yeah?
Well, I know. I mean, I know, because I go home every
Right, yeah.
Wednesday night past there.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a noise meter. Fine. But it's still able to be in operation
Correct, so they have to renew their,
January.
every year, so that's,
Enough said.
But they apply by November 15th for
yeah.
their
And that's
January
why he's
renewal.
trying to get the text amendments done before
That's
the
where I
new
was going.
application, so, yeah.
That's going to come and go. That's the thing.
Yeah, so then I would also bring up Mozzie's on Highway 9 as another one of those tweeners.
Thought about that one.
Restaurant, not really.
Noise.
Yeah.
Good shot.
Really pool hall and drinking establishment. Not that I'm opposed, it's just, it is what it is. And it's not what they said they are. That's my point.
So I think that goes back to, I think the finance department's working on trying to do a little bit, working with the police for a little more enforcement and auditing, so.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
Okay, so takeaway, we're gonna finish up edits. If you guys can get to me whatever other things that you see outstanding, and then we'll get all of the checks on the items that are not finished, and we'll get the drafts to you, and then we'll go from there, and then we'll talk about the public kickoff.
And then if you can also for the next meeting, just have a short one-pager on any of the input we gave you of future what I call future
Yeah,
considerations.
future
like
yeah.
the lighting, how many days a restaurant has to be open, those sorts of things.
Yeah, okay.
That's good. We can't lose
So
track
we
of
don't
those.
lose them.
Right, we can't lose track of those.
So right now, for October, there's a possibility of having a preliminary plat come to you. So I don't really, I mean, there's no use permits or rezonings or anything. I think there will be some coming up in the next few months, but so we can work on that. And if Anita's available, do you want me to ask her to come with economic development?
Yeah,
And
yes,
then,
yes, absolutely.
and if it's a little bit empty still, I can do a little bit more training. I know you gave me a laundry list of items, so I don't want to forget about that. Some just different topics to train on, so.
Okay,
Yep.
that'd be good.
I have one other question for you. This is on something that came through quite a while ago. I wasn't on the planning commission. I was on design review board, but I do know it came here. And it was in front of council a month or two ago for a plat revision on the corner of Webb Bridge and Deerfield. It's Mill.
Oh, right. Well, it wasn't a plat, it was the final plat, yes.
Or
for
final
the stat
plat, yeah,
plats,
yeah, which was a good thing. I mean, because it got fixed actually to
Right.
be a better plat. But what is going on with that property? It's still sitting there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I know that they were ready hot to trot, so I will give them, I haven't heard anything. I'll talk to,
And do I need to put in a code enforcement complaint because they're not keeping the lot? Trim.
I can take care of that.
Okay, it needs to be done.
Okay.
It's
Stack flats.
it's not good.
Okay.
And I feel for the folks that live right across the street.
But I know when they were working on the plat, I said, when are you gonna be submitting your
Yeah.
building permits and getting going? I know it took a little bit because there were some issues with the Fulton County sewer, but they finally got what they needed, so.
Okay, good. Well, I mean, they redesigned and all that and fixed all the
Yeah, it
issues.
looks really nice.
It looks much better. I mean,
Yeah.
it was horrid when it
Yeah.
came in and to me, the plat is much better. I mean, for that piece of property, they
Yeah.
fixed it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everything's good. I just would like to, wondering when they're starting.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I will definitely follow up on that.
And if they're not going to be for a while, let's trim.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
Okay, so I think that's it. If you want to make a motion.
Yeah, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.